So, according to the research of Kohlberg and others, our consciences develop and evolve. That makes sense. Our bodies, our intellects, everything else about us grows through stages of development as well. When it comes to moral reasoning, then, Kohlberg identifies 3 levels or types of conscience, each divided into 2 closely related stages. We conclude our investigation of the research of Lawrence Kohlberg and his team by considering 8 final points, 8 footnotes, if you will. First, Kohlberg's research indicates that moral growth is sequential. A person grows through these stages in order from 1 to 6. No one reaches stage 4 without first passing through stages 1, 2, and 3. Of course, the pace of growth varies from person to person, and most people may never outgrow stage 3 or 4. And there are 18-year-olds with fully formed consciences and 80-year-olds with immature childish consciences. Second, saying that someone is reasoning at stage 5 actually means she or he can reason at stages 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Perhaps I reason at stage 2 when it comes to work and money, at stage 3 when it comes to dealing with my peers, at stage 4 when it's time to pay my taxes, and at stage 6 when driving on the highway. The ideal, of course, would be to reason at one's highest stage all of the time, consistently. Doesn't happen often, but it's a worthy goal. Third, a person can only comprehend the reasoning of people 1 stage ahead of one's own, and not beyond that. A stage 2 person understands the way someone at stage 3 reasons, but doesn't really get stages 4, 5, and 6. By way of analogy, a 10-year-old knows in the abstract that 16-year-olds drive cars and go to high school. But the 10-year-old kid won't really understand what it's like to be 16 until they're 14 or 15. It's pointless to try to explain how honesty is in the common good, stage 5 reasoning, to someone who reasons at stage 1. Fourth, in a related conclusion, it is contact with those who now reason 1 stage ahead of one's own that promotes growth in moral reasoning. In experimental schools, where students are grouped according to their stage of moral reasoning, so they routinely rub shoulders each day with others who are 1 stage ahead, students will progress through the stages of reasoning more rapidly than students who are randomly scheduled. This has enormous implications for moral education. Fifth, when someone who reasons at a higher stage reverts down, a stage 5 person thinks and acts at stage 2, she will tend to feel foolish or immature, the way a 30-year-old person might feel foolish after throwing a temper tantrum like a 3-year-old. Sixth, understanding these stages of moral reasoning should warn us that we cannot judge or second-guess the motives of others. For example, Jenny is giving you a lift in her car, and you notice that she's speeding. When she spots a state trooper in her rearview mirror, she hits the brakes and slows down. Can you accurately guess why she did that? No. She might have been reasoning at stage 1, fear of punishment, or stage 4, law and order, or stage 6, she personally values human life. You have no way of knowing unless she tells you why she hit the brakes. And even if she said, "Oh, the last thing I need is another ticket," that still doesn't mean she reasons only at stage 1. It could be that she reasons at stage 6 most of the time, and in this one instance reverted down to stage 1. Seventh, if a person reasons immaturely, that doesn't mean that he is bad, evil, or immoral, only that he is immature, that there may be room for further growth and development of his conscience and character. And finally, eighth, it is important to keep in mind that Kohlberg studied not moral behavior, but moral reasoning, the way we think as we make choices and decisions. It goes without saying that feeling and intuition and other factors are also involved when we make ethical choices, something that should not be forgotten or underestimated. It is also important to remember that knowing the stage of moral reasoning does not allow us to predict that person's behavior. For example, 2 people who reason at stage 3 are classmates at the local high school. One, whose friends are all honor roll types, thinks it is important for her to stay focused on her schoolwork and get the best grades possible, in the process winning the acceptance and approval of her friends. The other, whose friends mostly think school is a waste of time, does the minimum to avoid flunking, thus winning the respect and approval of her closest friends, who think that high-achieving students are all nerds. Kohlberg studies what people are thinking as they make moral choices, not what moral choices they make. Two individuals reasoning at the same stage may act quite differently. Back to where we started. Back to the assumptions most people have about how to teach virtue, how to help children form and develop their consciences. First, use of examples. Be a good example and role model yourself, and draw the child's attention often to the honesty of siblings, of famous people from history, of the saints, and so forth. Second, lecture the child about honesty. Parents should explain why honesty is important, and that should be reinforced by sermons in church and by teachers and coaches and other adults. Third, reward honest behavior in some way and punish dishonest behavior. Kohlberg's research shows us that the first two, using role models and examples and lecturing, might be effective if the examples given model moral reasoning one step ahead of the child's own reasoning. A child who reasons at pre-conventional stage 1, avoiding punishment, won't really understand and admire a Thomas More giving his life for standing on principle. But she might understand that Thomas More is now honored and revered as a hero, stage 3 reasoning. The third tactic, punishment and reward, coheres well with pre-conventional moral reasoning. By using this approach, and without realizing it, the adult is reinforcing immature moral thinking. The child is not motivated to grow into higher stages of moral reasoning. As long as mommy and daddy reward me for doing well in school, why should I change my mode of reasoning? It works. It's only when they stop rewarding me, when they tell me I'm too big or too old to expect rewards every time I please them, only then will I be challenged to adopt a new way of thinking. Only then will I have the opportunity to move to the next level of moral reasoning. So where do you see yourself in all of this? Would you say at the present time your conscience is a pre-conventional, fairly childish conscience in need of further growth and development? Do you reason at stages 3 and 4 most of the time? Is your moral reasoning conventional, all about winning the approval and respect of others? If so, you're not alone. It's called conventional because it's the way most adults reason. Or perhaps you have a fully formed conscience. You've given laws, rules, customs, and the like a lot of thought, and you have a pretty good idea what principles, values, and virtues they are designed to protect. You don't need a parent, teacher, or cop to tell you what is right and good, because you figured that out for yourself. When you go against those principles and values, you feel like you have disappointed or even betrayed yourself, and even if no one else in the world knows, you feel at least a little ashamed. Finally, does your conscience operate at your highest potential most of the time, or are you frequently backsliding down to stages 1 and 2 all the time? Are you consistent, a person of integrity? Give this research some thought and figure out where you are, but don't be too hard on yourself. Remember that most people, including most adults, have a way to go in developing their consciences. Those with fully formed consciences are always in the minority. So back to the basics of Catholic moral teaching. First, have a fully formed conscience. Second, before you make a decision, inform your conscience, gather information, and know all of the available options. And third, as you make a decision or choice, follow your well-formed and fully informed conscience. Following these guidelines does not guarantee that every choice you make will turn out to be the correct one. But it does guarantee that you will have the peace of mind that comes from knowing that, under the circumstances, you did the very best you could with the conscience you have.